Alright, welcome back to day 2. So today we will talk about creating a shooting system where your player can shoot bullets and also destroying enemy. So the first thing we need to do is to fix the flipping direction thing. So right now, as you can see, it does not flip direction. The eye is always pointing the same way. If you followed up to the tutorial from last time, the one that I showed you how to flip it, we are going to delete that part. We don't need it. There is a better method that will be useful for more application in the future. So first thing we're going to do is open your player movement script, and we are going to be working on this. Alright, so first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we know what direction our player is facing. So to do that, we are going to create a bool, public bool, and this bool will be called facing right, which means if I'm facing right, this bool will be true. If I'm not facing right, this bool will be false. So, and then we will slide all the way to the bottom and we will add a new void. This void, we are going to make it a public void, and we will get to why it's public in a minute. And then flip, and we will open it. That we just name it flip because the whole purpose of it is to flip our player face. So if our player is facing right, we wanted to not face right. So basically this means facing right does not equal facing right. So every time we call this function, facing right will be false because it won't face right, and that when we are going to change the player facing direction. So local scale, and then we will do new vector. Actually, let's do vector 2, and then we will do negative transform dot local scale dot the x-axis, and then the y stays the same. We don't want to mess with the y, so local scale dot y. So what this means, and then don't forget your semicolon, what this means, if my facing right does not equal facing right, which means I'm not facing right, I want my player to change the direction they are looking to be the opposite direction. So if they were looking left, they will turn to the right. If they were looking right, they will turn to the left. So adding this by itself will not do anything. So now let's implement it to the update function. And to do that, we will need to add an if statement. So just go ahead and remove your old if statement for the direction flipping. So in this one, we will say move h smaller than 0. So if our speed was smaller than 0, which means we are heading to the left, and this time we will add another condition, which is facing right is false. So if our speed is less than 0 and we are not looking toward the right direction, we want something to happen. And then we will add another condition, or those two straight lines there, and they are by the delete button to the left of it, and we want to do the opposite statement. So we will copy this and we will put it here. So and, or not and, or if the move h is bigger than 0, which means we're facing right, and facing right is true, then we will open a bracket. We want to be able to flip, so we will call flip just like this. So it might be a little complicated, but it totally makes sense, because it just like, if this is true, then I want, if this part is true, I want you to flip to the left. If this part is true, I want you to flip to the right. So very easy fix, but very, very useful. All right, so now let's run it and test it. Okay, so as you can see, it works great, and it doesn't matter what size my player is. I can, for example, make it very wide, and it will actually I put it backward. Let's put a negative number there. Yeah. no matter how big my player is, it will always work, whether the other method wouldn't work for any size player. Okay, that's good. Now let's move to the fun part, creating a health system and creating a bullet and being able to shoot the bullet. So the first part, we need to create a gun. So we will go to the player, we will create an empty object, and we will call it gun. This is just a reference point. And then inside the gun, let's design a gun. So I will use a square, and then I'll drag it down here. I'll scale it. That's somewhat, and then we'll go again and create another square. And this one, we will make it thinner this way. Let's actually move it down here. And scale it down, maybe a little thinner than that, shorter. And there you go, I have a gun. And now I will select the gun and I will go all the way to the right and make sure I activate this. Just pick any one of these colors. Again, it's all the way up here. You see this box? You click on it and select one of those small dots. Any color is fine. This is helpful because it's going to tell you where your gun is located in relation to your player. So what you're going to do next is you will hold shift and select them both and take the gun until the tip of the gun, the mount, like the tip of the gun is inside this circle, not too much, just like a tiny bit, just like that. And then take the whole gun from here and move it all to whatever position you want. And then come to the square, give it the first square, the barrel, give it 1, and then give the other one a 1. And now if you looked, there you go, your player is holding a gun that they can use. Alright, so the gun part, check, complete. Now let's move on and start making the bullet. So the bullet is the same thing. We will just create a sprite shape. My bullets are gonna be a capsule shape, so I'm going to rotate it. Actually, instead of, yeah, let's just rotate it. You know, an easier way, you can go to the z-axis and give it the number 90, and then I'm gonna scale it down. If you hold the center, you can scale it down all at once. Alright, and then since it's a bullet, I'm gonna color it green just to make it unique and visible. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you leave it for now. Just make sure you label it bullet so you know what it is. Okay, so we have the bullet. Now let's start writing the code. The first code we're gonna write is for the bullet, so we can shoot it. Actually, no, let's start with the other way around. The first code we are going to write will be the shooting code, the one that will allow us to fire the bullet, because that is simpler. So I will right click, create script. I will name it shooting. Okay, so to shoot a bullet, we will need a bullet prefab. So we will need to call the bullet. So I will do public game object bullet or bullets, whatever. I'm gonna just put it singular, and then we want a reference point. A reference point means where the bullet will be coming out from, and we will call it gun. So another game object called gun. So this is what we're shooting, and this is where the bullet is coming out from, just so it looks more neater and not just random. All right, and after we do that, we will go ahead and go to our update function, and we will give it a condition. So we will say if input dot get button. This time we're not using get button down, we're just using get button. So if you hold the firing button, it will keep firing forever and it won't stop you. and we will use the command fire1. Yeah, all right, and then inside this we will create the bullet. So to create the bullet we need something called instantiate. And then what do we want to make? We want to make a bullet, so we will copy the bullet, we will put it there. The second one is, where do you want the bullet to come from? We want it to come from the gun, so we will put the gun here, and then we will put dot transform dot position, and that will tell the game, hey, the bullet is coming out of this gun. And then the last one is the rotation of it. We will use the quaternion dot identity. Yeah, that's just the rotation. That it's not important, but you need it there so it works. All right, and now ideally, if we did it correctly, every time we press the button something will appear on the screen. So let's do that. So what we're gonna do next is we will take the shooting script and add it to our player, which we did there. Okay, so the bullet is going to be the bullet and the gun is going to be the gun, just like that. So now every time I hit the bullet, as you can see, you have the bullet showing up, right? But it's not moving, it's not flying, it's even in the wrong orientation, but it's just there, which is good so far. Or so far so good, however you want to call it. Okay, now we need to make it actually move, actually fly. To do that, we need to create a new script called bullets, and this one will control the bullet behavior. All right, so now we will open the bullet script. So what do a bullet do? A bullet flies, so we will need a speed. So public speed, public float, and we will call it speed, or maybe call it B speed, so you know it's a bullet speed and you don't mix it up with the player speed. And then what else? The bullet do damage, so we will do another public float, and we will call it damage. What else do we need? I guess those are the two things we need, yeah. So we will go to the start function. Actually, we don't need it now, we will get back to it later. So now we want the bullet to fly. So the first thing we're gonna do is we are going to make it fly. So we will write transform dot translate, and what this does is it moves the position but without using physics. So it's gonna make it fly without using physics. And then we will do vector2 dot right, which means I want you to head to the right, and we will multiply that by the bullet speed. Yep, we did it like this, bullet speed, and then yeah, that's all we need. So now if we did this correctly, the bullet should be moving toward the right. So let's test it out. Well, we did not do it correctly. Let's see what's wrong. Yeah, I know what's wrong. We did not take the bullet and add it to the bullets here. So we will take the bullet script and drag it to the bullet. And then we need to set a speed. Let's put the speed as 20 and the damage is 1 for now. We can fix that later. Let's test it now. So apparently 20 is too fast. So let's put 1. Yep. As you can see, it is shooting, but it's shooting too many. So let's fix this random speed issue. To fix it, you can multiply this by time dot delta time, and that will make it per second instead of per frame, and that fixes all the speed issues, and we will look at it in a minute. All right, let's look at it now. And yeah, let's keep it as 20 because it drastically dropped the speed. as you can see, the bullet is shooting, but there is a problem. It's shooting a million bullets at the time, and all those bullets are still here. If you didn't delete them, eventually the game will crash on you, so don't keep shooting a million ones, or it's gonna crash and you won't be able to save it. So we need to fix that. So we want the bullet to disappear after a certain amount of time, and we also want them to just like I guess you can't shoot them. We need a cooldown period. We don't want to just be able to shoot a million times. So let's make them first disappear. So to make them disappear after a certain amount of time, we can use the function that is called destroy. And then in destroy, you need to put, what do you want to destroy? You want to destroy the bullet. So we want to destroy the game object because we are in the bullet code. And then how long do you want to wait before the bullet get destroyed? I'm going to put 3 seconds. Because the bullets are too fast. 3 seconds, they will disappear from the screen, so we don't have to worry about them. Alright, and that fixes the problem of the bullet staying with us the whole time. So let's look at it again. So I want you to look at the left side and see all those bullets, and just give it 3 seconds, and then all of them will disappear. Here you will face another problem. Now, since all of them are deleted, you cannot make new bullets, and the fix to that is easy. It's because this is what we're using as our bullet. What we can do is we can drag it down here and make it into a prefab. When we make it into a prefab, what it means is now it's not part of the game, it's part of the files we save, or it's not part of the scene, it's part of the file we saved. So I can delete it from the scene, go back to my player, go down here, drag the bullet from here all the way here. And now it doesn't matter how many bullets I shoot, I will always be able to shoot. Alright, now let's fix the second issue we have, which is our cooldown. So we don't want you to be able to shoot like crazy, we want to like limit the player from shooting like crazy, so it's not like unfair for the enemies. So what we can add is something called public. We're gonna make it public so we can manipulate it. Float, because we want it to be a number, and then we can put it a fire rate. You can name it whatever you want. You may name it cooldown, and then we will create another float. This time is private because we don't want to see it. Float, and we will call it cool down time. This is, we just need it for the math of the cooldown. Alright, so what we want to do now is we want to make the condition so you can fire if you hit the button, and at the same time time. This is just how Unity know what time it is. So we want to check if that time is bigger than the cooldown time. If that time is bigger than the cooldown time, I want to be able to fire, and then we will say cooldown time equals to time plus fire rate. What this does is it makes the cooldown time bigger than the fire rate, so it starts counting negatively, like it goes from bigger to small. So now let's check it and see if it works. Let's go back to Unity, and then let's look at our player shooting script. As we can see, now we have fire rate. Let's do it every 1 second and let's see what happens. So now I'm holding the button. Every 1 second it shoots once. I mean, that's kind of too slow, so we can speed it up. Maybe you want it every 0.5 seconds, or maybe every 0.3 seconds. Yeah, so whatever feels really nice to you, you can do it. So I'm gonna put it back to 0.3 second for now. Alright, so now we can fire, and our firing rate is great. Nothing is wrong with it. It's amazing, but it's not really killing any enemies. And the other issue is it's only firing on one direction. If I move this way, it's still firing in the wrong direction. We don't want that. We want to be able to fire in both directions. So now let's add a correction. So the correction, we're gonna add it to the bullets. So go to the bullet script and let's add a correction. So the whole idea of this correction is to make you fire toward the direction of your player. So the first thing we want to add is something called a game object, and this time it will be our player. And the second thing we need to add is a float, which is the correction amount, because we want to be able to correct the direction, and the direction is a number. So when we are looking to the right, we want the number to be positive. When we look to the left, we want the number to be negative. So in the start, we want to find our player. So we can automatically find it by saying player equal game object dot find, and then here you want to write your player name. So my player name is player. Where do you find that? So if you go back to Unity, see, my player name is player. Make sure you spell it correctly, because if you spelled it wrong, it's not gonna work for you. And this need to be capital game player. Okay, that means we will find our player, and then we want to do the correction. Correction equal to player dot transform dot local scale dot x, because we want to take the direction of our player. It's either negative or positive, and then we will take the correction and we will multiply it by the same equation here. So we want to shoot to the right, multiply by either -1 or +1, and then we want to have the speed of the bullet, and we want to respect the frame rate to the time. So now let's check if it works. And then perfectly working. So I can fire in both direction and everything is amazing. Okay, great. Now let's work on the enemy. Let's create an enemy. So what I'm gonna do is I will create new 2D and I will make an enemy. So since I'm square, I think my enemies need to be triangles, or you can make any shape. I don't think y'all have triangles on the app in your computers, but I have one. Okay, I'm just gonna make it similar to all of y'all. Okay, let's go ahead and do a pointed top no, that's too sharp. Let's make it into a flat top, and then since it's an enemy, we're gonna make it longer so it looks more dangerous, and then we will change the color of the enemy. Since I'm red, I'll put the enemy to blue. Let's pick a softer blue. Okay, that's my enemy. So since it's an enemy, we're gonna add a rigid body 2D to it, and we're gonna add a collider to it. And then when you do, since it's not like a square or a circle, you can use the polygon collider 2D, and that will trace it perfectly. Alright, so that's our enemy. And now we can shoot it forever and nothing will happen to it. The bullet just goes through it, so we need to fix that. The first thing we need to fix is the bullet themselves. So let's go to the bullet and let's add a component, and let's give them a collider. And again, since they are a capsule, we can select the capsule collider. So, and then we will put the ease trigger to on. That will come important in a minute. Alright, so we have the bullet, and now we want the bullet to interact with other things, right? So go back to the bullet script, and we need to add a collision. It's similar to the one we added last time, so we will do void, but this time it's on trigger instead of on collision. On trigger, enter 2D. Let me just make sure I spelled it correctly. On trigger, enter 2D, and then the argument inside will be collider 2D, and then we will name it other. You can name it anything, but let's just stick with other. All right, and then in here we will make it basically do damage and hit the enemy and other things. So we will pause for it right now, go back to Unity, and let's create a health system for the enemy so we can actually hit the enemy and make a damage to the enemy. So create new script and we call it enemy health. The spelling is important in a minute. So for the health of the enemy, we want to have a public float, which is max health. That's mean the maximum amount of health the enemy can have, and another public float, which is current health. And that just means what is your health right now after receiving damage. So at the very beginning of the game, we want our current health to equal our max health, because nothing happened to us, we just started the game. And then we don't need a update, we don't need the update void, so we can delete it. You don't have to delete it if you don't want to. And then we will do a public void, and it's important to keep it public so we can access it. Take damage. You don't have to name it take damage, you can name it anything else, but name it take damage just to make it easier on yourself later. So what happens when we take damage? We want the current health. Well, before we do that, we want to give it an argument called float damage, and that just means, hey, when you get hit, we want to activate that damage. So current health, if you got hit, we want the current health to be subtracted by the damage. This just means current health, the amount of current health I have right now minus the amount of damage I set. And the amount of damage, we will set it on the bullet. The bullet will tell us how much damage. And then at the end, if current health is smaller or equal to 0, basically if you died, or if the enemy died, we want to destroy it. Destroy game object. So that's all. So if the enemy took damage, their current health will drop, and then when their current health is 0 or below, they basically get destroyed. Alright, now we go back to the bullet, and here where the fun happens. So in the on trigger, we want to put a condition. So we don't want anything to be destroyed, we only want enemies to be destroyed. So we will say if other dot tag equal enemy. So if the object that we hit have the name enemy in it, I want to basically find the health component, I want to find this health and do my damage, subtract the damage. So the first thing we will do is we will create a variable, var for variable called health, or yeah, we can call it enemy health. The variable will be called enemy health, and it will equal to other dot get component, and we will say the component we're trying to get is enemy health, and then we will close it and we will open parentheses and semicolon. So that means basically this enemy health, I want it to be the same enemy health from the enemy code. So which means it will, whenever this one is called, it will go and find this files and be like, okay, I'm inside that file now, what should I do? All right, what should you do? We will say enemy health dot take damage. This take damage is this take damage. That's why the name is important, so you know where to go. And then we want to give it a certain amount of damage that it takes, and that certain amount of damage will be damage, and we will decide it later, and then semicolon. All right, and then we want to destroy the bullet. After the bullet hits our enemy, we don't want it to keep flying forever, we want it just to get destroyed, so we will destroy the bullet after it hits the enemy. All right, what if the bullet did not hit the enemy? What if it hit a wall? Do you want it to go through the wall? No, we want to destroy it as well. So we will say else if, basically if you didn't hit the enemy, which we will do other dot tag does not equal enemy, If the tag did not equal enemy, that means anything else but enemy, we just want to destroy it. Destroy game object. All right, so ideally, if we did everything correctly, we should be done with this. So let's test it and run it and see. So now, first thing first we want to do is we want to go to the enemy and we want to create a new tag named enemy. So add tag enemy, save. I don't know why that's still there, but it doesn't matter. So then I'm gonna go to the enemy. Let's name it enemy so it's easier to find. And then go to the tag and make sure you give it the tag enemy. And then go to the script, go to enemy, make sure you drag the enemy health to the enemy. So now it's an enemy. So we will give it a max health of, let's do 3 for now. And then let's go to the bullet, and in the bullet let's change the damage to keep the damage 1, and the correction we don't need it, and that one is automatically going to be found. All right, let's test it and see. I'm gonna have my inspector on the enemy. 1, you see the current health is dropping. 2 and 3, the enemy is dead. And you can create as many enemies you want, and you just give them different health and it will work. All right, so that's how to create an enemy health system, and you can shoot bullets as much as you want. All right, yeah, so one more thing we needed to fix is the bullet not facing the right shape. That actually is a problem with our rotation. So if you went back to the bullet, this one, this is the problem. So one way you can do it is by saying you want it to be bullet.transform.rotation. That will fix it, hopefully. Might not. Let's see. Actually, that might actually worked. Wow, funny. Now it's going up and down because the game think it's the other way. All right, I'm not gonna make it complicated because you can actually fix it by just changing the bullet direction from right to up, and then if you go back to your game, that should fix it, but you don't have to do this last part. I mean, you can if you want to. There is other easier ways. Nope, that wouldn't work. Okay, let's just go back and change the rotation to the quantum identity, and then just go back and put this as a right. And then what you can do to fix that is just go to the game itself and then select your bullet, and let's just put it to 0, and then just shrink it this way, and then make it longer this way. And you can change the size of this as you wish. Like we can make it 1 and 2, or however you want it. I'm just gonna make it 1 and 1. Yeah. And that will actually fix it. So now let's look at the bullet. More like a bullet. All right, so that's all. Yeah, hope you all have fun creating this, and then you can keep adding stuff to your level and make it more entertaining and more fun.